I hate when people say cooking's too expensive, because honestly, it's not. Because today, we're going to be making a carne asada taco and a vegetarian taco that are both cheap and delicious. To get this started, let's head to the store. Alright, first item in the morning, 3 bunches of cilantro. Let's grab these. It's going to be 2 for $3. Alright, now we got to grab red bell pepper. Grab this one, looks pretty good. It's going to be $5.99 a pound. Now for the citrus, we get 6 limes, 1 lemon. Now we're going to grab a lemon. Pretty good. And they're both 79 cents each. Alright, it's tomatillo time. We need 6 of these for the salsa verde. Right next to the tomatillos, we got the jalepeños. I'm going to grab 2 of these. $5.99 a pound. These babes are pretty light though, so pretty inexpensive. Now we're gonna need white onions. We're gonna get 2 of these. Let's grab this one and this one. These are $2.49 a pound. We're gonna grab a head of garlic. These are $5.99 a pound. We're gonna grab 2 large avocados for the guacamole, $3.99 each. We're gonna grab a red onion now, $2.49 a pound. Here's some cotija cheese, $7.99, but we're definitely not using this whole thing. All right, here we got our 2 tortilla options for our tacos. We got some corn tortillas, which come in at $2.29 for 18. About 13 cents per tortilla. And then we have our flour tortillas, $2.69 for 12. So a little more expensive, it's about 22 cents. Personally, I like flour tortillas a lot more. So these are a little cheaper, but for today we're gonna go with the flour tortillas. All right, we're gonna grab our skirt steak here, 17 bucks for this. Personally, I will not be eating this, but I'm gonna go have some fun. Grab a can of pinto beans here, $1.99 for this. Groceries required, let's head back to the house and see how much each individual ingredient's gonna cost.
All right, everyone, so I'm gonna be making a carne asada taco with a medium salsa verde as well as guacamole. The first step is going to be marinating the steak. I'm gonna start out by doing that first because it takes the longest. It's gonna need to sit in the fridge for a while. We have all of the ingredients here, so we're gonna start out with our skirt steak. All right, so we have skirt steak, which is obviously gonna be the best meat for carne asada because it is thin. We can get a good sear on the grill, but it's also really good at soaking up marinade. So we're gonna start and make our marinade. We're gonna go ahead and put this in a Ziploc bag, and we're gonna put some of our other ingredients in it. Okay, so because this is a carne asada, this is a Mexican dish. As you saw in the intro, we got a lot of cilantro at the store. We're gonna use an entire bunch of cilantro in this marinade. We're just gonna tear it up. We're not gonna really chop it because we don't really want it on it, but this is just gonna be for the actual marinade itself. So go ahead and just sort of tear these into the actual sprigs that they are and throw them in the bag. All right, so the bunch of cilantro was actually pretty big. So what I did is I just took half of it, I cut the stems off, and I'm gonna throw these into the bag. Now we're gonna go ahead with 3 cloves of garlic. These, we're gonna chop these up and put them in the bag. All right, I minced my 3 garlic cloves. Gonna go ahead and put these in the bag. All right, in we go with 3 garlic cloves. All right, now we're gonna go ahead with 1 lime. We're gonna go the zest and the juice. Open your bag up and we're just gonna zest this whole thing. All right, so I just zested the lime. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this and put the juice into the bag. Just the first half and the second half. All right, because it's carne asada and we need another kind of citrus, we're gonna go ahead with the lemon. I'm gonna roll it so I get all those juices flowing. Gonna go ahead and cut it into 2. Here's gonna be our first half and the second half. All right, now we're gonna go ahead with a medium-sized pinch of cumin. Got a little bit more, not that much. Okay, now we're gonna go with a big pinch of salt, some freshly cracked black pepper. All right, now you can put in a pinch of brown sugar, but if I'm gonna be honest, I can't even find mine right now. So I'm gonna skip that. And now we're just gonna go ahead and put in enough olive oil for it to turn into a marinade. Just go ahead like this. All right, so now we're gonna close the bag up. Make sure it's nice and tight because we don't want anything falling. Then we're kind of just gonna wanna rub everything together. Make it all into a nice marinade. Make sure everything gets incorporated. Do this for about a minute or 2. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge for about an hour. If you wanna do it for longer than that, just make sure you don't go over 8 hours because we did put citrus in here. And if that stays in the bag for too long, it's actually gonna start breaking down the fibers of the steak and cooking it. We don't want that. So right here, the most ideal time is just gonna be refrigerated for an hour or 2, and that's what we're gonna go ahead and do. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and make our guacamole. Have our ingredients right here. Let's go ahead and do that. So the first step is you're gonna wanna make sure you have a bowl big enough. A mistake I always make is I always get a way too small of a bowl and then I don't even have enough room to mix all the ingredients. Go big when it comes to the bowls. I have my bowl here. Our first step is we're gonna be cutting our avocados, de-seeding them, and putting them into the bowl. Okay, so I'm making an executive decision. I'm now realizing that 2 avocados to make guacamole is plenty. Like that's talking about enough for an entire dinner party. So we're gonna go ahead and just make enough guacamole with 1 avocado. Avocados are pretty expensive anyways, so just cut it along the seed like so. And then once you get all the way around, you can just twist it off. Make sure you be careful with this, just like lightly tap it, twist, pull out. So there's a lot of strategies that people use when it comes to getting the avocado out of the skin. What I personally like to do is I like to cut it into quarters. And then once you do that, you can just peel the skin back and put it right into the bowl. So go ahead and do that with your remaining avocado quarters. Okay, and then next up, this is a mistake I see a lot of cooks making when it comes to making guacamole. Me personally, my favorite guacamole to get is Chipotle's, and it's always been a mission of mine to recreate their guacamole exactly. And the thing that I have come to find to be the most beneficial to me reaching that goal is not using white onions and instead using red onions every time. Next time you go to Chipotle, you can look at their guacamole. You're gonna have red onions every time. That's what gives it its unique taste. It changes the flavor much more than you think it would. And this change of flavor alone will actually make much of a bigger difference that you would normally think. So we're gonna go ahead. If you were using 2 avocados, you would use 1/8 of a red onion. We're only using 1, so I'm gonna use a 1/16. I'm not really gonna measure that, just like enough for it to be like a solid portion of the guacamole. You'll see how much that is. Okay, so here I have a little bit less than 1/4 of an onion. I'm gonna go ahead and chop this whole thing just for practical purposes, and then I will show you how much of this I'm going to use. All right, so this is about what 1/4 of an onion gave me. I'm not gonna use the whole thing, but I will actually save some. If I remember to put some on the top of the tacos at the end as a topping, because whenever you get tacos, you see that cilantro and onions are a pretty common topping. So I'm gonna go ahead and use maybe half of it. So I guess you can call it 1/8 of an onion. I'm gonna go in with 1/8 of an onion. And I'm gonna leave this onion for later for toppings. Okay, next up, we're gonna add a jalapeno to the mix. If you were doing 2 avocados, you would use an entire jalapeno. I'm white, so I'm just gonna use half of a jalapeno because I can't handle spice. Feel free to adjust the spice level to however you want. 2 tips I have though are obviously, do not rub your eyes when you touch this because they will burn. I learned that the hard way. Another tip is make sure you cut them really small. So I've got my half of my jalapeno. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it into really thin strips, and I'm gonna dice it up nice and small. All right, so these are my jalapenos. I'm pretty happy with that size. If you're scared like me of it being too big, you can go ahead and just run your knife through it just like we did with the garlic, so it's gonna end up smaller. But for me, this is a good enough size. So in we go with half of a jalapeno. So if you've had cilantro before, you would know that cilantro plays a pretty big role in the flavor of it. I've come to find that per 2 avocados, half of a bunch is pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead with 1/4 of a bunch. This is the half that we had from earlier. So I'm gonna split this in half, chop it up, put it in. All right, so I've got my cilantro. I've took out the pretty big stems. I'm gonna go ahead and just bunch this up as tight as I can. And then I'm just gonna run my knife through it, make sure not to cut myself, cut it as small as I can. It's gonna help me in the long run. I personally hate cutting cilantro because I swear to God, it just takes me so long. But now you're just gonna run your knife through it until it's a small enough texture. All right, so I've got my 1/4 bunch of cilantro. I've chopped it up pretty nice. I'll go ahead and throw that in. All right, so as Isaiah might say, it's tomatillo time over there. He's gonna be de-husking the tomatillos to prep the salsa verde. Last thing for the guacamole, the zest and juice of 1 lime. All right, so we're gonna go ahead with the zest. Okay, I'm gonna go with the first half of the lime and the second half. I'm gonna have Isaiah come in and do the fun part and mush it up.
This is a tool we would normally use to mush up the guacamole, but because we only use 1 avocado, it's pretty, you could use it, but you can also use a fork. That'll be a little easier for this amount, so we're gonna do that. All right, here's a finished product, all mushed up and ready for the next step. All right, now we're gonna be making our salsa verde. Here are our ingredients. First up, we have 6 large tomatillos. We've dehusked them and washed them so they're not sticky. We also have half of an onion here. We have our entire jalapeno deseeded. Finally, we have 3 garlic cloves with the skin on so they don't burn in the broiler. So now we're gonna put all these into the broiler for about 3 to 8 minutes. Make sure you keep your eyes on it. You're gonna want it to burn because we want char, because that means flavor. But once you see char around all the stuff, it means you should take it out, put it on the stove top. So let's go ahead and put it in the broiler. All right, so our veggies just came out of the oven, nice and broiled. We're gonna get those, our lime and our cilantro into the blender and blend it up real quick. All right, so we're gonna throw these in. Pretty hot, but nothing I can't handle. All right, we got our garlic cloves here as well. That's the last thing, but they still have the skin on them, so I'm gonna take the skin off and then put them in. Everything in the tray we got in the blender now. Gonna take the zester and zest the lime and add some juice. All right, since we also got very limey guac in our tacos, I think this is about good for our lime. Now I'm gonna cut it in half and put the juice in. All right, gonna load this bad boy up. Juice some limes. Second lime. All right, we got our limes added. Here's the cilantro we're about to add. It's a little bit less than a full bunch. I cut off the stems, so let's put it in. All right, last thing, we're gonna add a pinch of salt, bring out some flavor. And right now, if we were to blend this up, it would be a little too thick. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some splash of water to make it a little thinner. Don't worry though, adding water won't dilute the flavor. We have plenty of flavor with all the other ingredients, so it'll be okay. All right, we're gonna go blend this up, come right back, and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, so here we go. We got our salsa blended up. Honestly, by the smell, we might have added a little too much cilantro, so you can feel free to cut back on that, but I think it'll still be fine. Put this in and we'll move on to the next step. All right, it's time to make our fajitas. Right here we got ingredients. We got 1 entire red bell pepper cut up, 2 cloves of garlic with the skin peeled, and 1 whole white onion. Let's go to the stove. All right, so we have our pan here on medium to low heat. We're gonna add some olive oil in, and we're just gonna let that temperature raise. I know what Nick said about mincing garlic. We always do it by hand here, but I'm not at the moment skilled enough for that. So we're gonna use the handy tool here, the garlic press. So we're gonna press this over the oil until all the garlic comes out. And all this extra stuff on here, we're just gonna use the spatula, scrape it off. There you go. All right, we wanna keep stirring this just for now in the beginning so the garlic doesn't burn. All right, now we're gonna get these onions in the pan. All right, and stir these in. Get the oil and garlic all mixed in with the onions. Make sure nothing's burning. Final step, we're adding the bell peppers. Now we're just gonna mix this in. Stir it up, get the oil all over the veggies. All right, so we're gonna leave these on the stove for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how soft you want it. You're gonna be stirring occasionally. Just make sure nothing's burning. Constantly be stirring. You wanna be cautious of the heat. Switch from medium to low if need be, but just let it simmer here. Woo! All right, we're about halfway through this cooking of the fajitas. We're gonna add a pinch of cumin in just to add some flavor, some extra spice, and then keep on stirring. All right, we're gonna add some salt and pepper as well. Just nice for the pepper. Just a few cranks. Did that do anything? All right, while these are cooking, we're gonna start on our beans. A little bit of multitasking here. You know, you gotta do it as a pro chef. You know, not only is this dish cheap, vegetarian, for me at least, but it's also, you know, it's pretty quick to put together. It doesn't require that much time. All right, so to start off with the beans, we're gonna put some olive oil in the pan. We do have a lot of garlic in this recipe, but we're gonna press another garlic clove into the pan. All right, stir it up a little bit, just so it doesn't burn immediately. All right, now we're gonna put the onions in. So scoop these up. All right, so we can go ahead and stir this same spatula of fajitas, you know, don't want to waste dishes. Just gonna keep stirring these up, keeping an eye on them, making sure nothing's burning. All right, so we're gonna take the jalapeños now. Scoop those jalapeños up. We're gonna get this in the pan too. Nice and easy. Once those jalapeños are in, quickly stir those up. All right, these fajitas, I think they're about done. So we're gonna turn this off. It's a nice consistency, you know, pretty soft, but not too mushy. You don't want that, you still want some crunch in there. All right, so we got our pinto beans here. Drain the juice. Once you open it, there's normally some juice in the can, so just pour the juice out, keep the beans in, and now we're gonna dump them in. So we're gonna stir these up a little, and then we're gonna use that mushing tool that we were gonna use for the guac, but we ended up using a fork, so we're gonna use that for these beans to turn them into some nice refried pinto beans. Should only take about 5 to 10 minutes to cook. Just gonna press down on this a bunch of times, just mush these up. This is what it's gonna start to look like as you start mushing them. Just kind of stirring it up a little, and then we're gonna mush a little more. Behind me, Nick is chopping up some cilantro, which we're gonna add in a second. All right, now this is pretty mushed up. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. All right, last thing we're adding here is this cilantro. All right, beans are done, so we just turn it off. Now we assemble. All right, here we got tortillas warming up at the stove. Here's where boys become men. Can your hands deal with the heat? You know, you see those moms out there just, that's a little, well, is that sexist? It's a little sexist. You see those great chefs out there, you know, they got the hands of steel, one would say. But me, you know, I'm a little out of practice. Just haven't had much practice in general, but right now we're facing it. All right, here we go. Ingredients all together. We're gonna construct the tacos. Base, the beans. Nice scoop. Now we got the fajitas. For these, make sure to get some onions and pepper. All right, 2 hot ingredients added. All right, next up, we're gonna add a little bit of guac. All right, now we got our salsa. I haven't had this before, so I think we're gonna put it on one of them, see how it goes. Leave the other 2 without it. And there we go. We got the vegetarian tacos. Give you a close-up look right here. All right, we almost forgot the most important part of a vegetarian taco, the cheese. So we got our cotija cheese right here, crumbled up. Just so we're gonna sprinkle some on the tacos. Here we go. I present to you our vegetarian tacos. Looking great, looking delicious. We're about to try them, and all these three just for the price of this much. So pretty good. Very good. Creaminess of the beans, fajitas, still crunchy, not too mushy. Guac, cheese. I mean, just look at that string of cheese already melting. It's all just adds great flavor together. Salsa, actually, I think I'm gonna add the salsa to the other two. Salsa's adding nice flavor as well. All around, very, very good taco.
We're gonna go out to the grill. We got our carne asada. We took it out of the bag. It's a lot of garlic on it, so I wiped some off. We're gonna go ahead and grill this. No shoes, because we're Sigmas. Ooh, got our grill on high heat. I'm gonna go ahead and lay this puppy on. We're gonna go 2 to 3 minutes aside, because we want some char. As I said, the citrus did kind of cook it a little bit. 2 to 3 minutes aside should be perfect. Let's hope we get a perfect cook on it. All right, let's pray.
Oh my God, we should put the camera inside.
No. We're gonna flip the steak now. Oh, look at the char on the young fella. Ooh, look at the char on the young fella. All right, 2 to 3 more minutes.
Well,
All right, carne asada's done. Woo, looking good. Go ahead and take that puppy off. Gonna start assembling these tacos. I let the meat sit for about 5-10 minutes. On my taco, I'm gonna put obviously my meat. All right, I'm just gonna get messy with it. I don't really care if my hands get dirty. Go with a little bit of carne asada on each taco. This smells amazing, by the way. The garlic was a great touch. Don't scrape off too much because you're gonna want that in your taco. It's really nice. Next up, I'm gonna put some guacamole. I like a little bit more than Isaiah because, you know, I like a cold taco. You know, we got a lot of cold ingredients here. One thing I will say is I want to spread it out more so I get it in every bite. All right, guacamole's on. Gonna add a little bit of our salsa. That's a lot. I'm not gonna do that much. Probably a total of a teaspoon across all three. I'll do some cilantro and onions just because we have them. All right, cilantro and onions loaded on. Last thing we gotta do is that cotija cheese that gives us a nice creaminess, muy fresco, one might say. Just go ahead and load that up. Okay, there are my tacos. I'm gonna go get a picture of it real quick and we'll be right back. All right, now it's my favorite part about making these videos. We're gonna go ahead and try the food that we make. Got my taco, you can see the layers. This is actually gonna go for, these 3 tacos are gonna go for that price right there, which is actually pretty cheap. You're gonna see how delicious this thing is when I try it. So let's go ahead and try this thing. That's just incredible, bro. The meat is just so tender. Tastes amazing. You can feel that garlic. It's a little citrusy, and all the other toppings help. The guacamole is so fresh. Sauce is so tasty. Really, everything really comes together. I'm gonna say right now, it's the best taco I've ever had in my life. Make sure to like and subscribe. We've got some great content coming up. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.